Hi everyone, welcome to Lost in My Library. My name is Kate and today I am doing my August wrap-up video, which is really kind of sad. You'll see here in a minute why it's really sad. My statistics came down to having one classic and one romance, not a contemporary, it was just a romance. And my pages for the month, I read 587. One was an own book, and the other one was a library book that I got through Libby. One was physical, one was ebook. It was just, evenly split. It is what it is. So let's talk about the two books I read. The first book I read was The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I have read some of Oscar Wilde's work, not a whole lot of it, but I read The Importance of Being Earnest. Oh my goodness, it was hilarious, and I was just like, this is like great. It reminded me a lot of Shakespeare. In some ways, I was also taking Shakespeare class, so having my Shakespeare class and also reading Oscar Wilde's The Importance of Earnest, it really was like, I see a lot of similarities to it. Anyways, so I also had this book, The Picture of Dorian Gray, which I have had for a while now, and I started reading it, and there's a lot of talk about vanity, and there's a lot of talk about femininity as well. Something like this, I don't think you would expect, but what it means to be a woman and what men thought of women at that time was, there's this whole character, he has a lot to say about women, and it's not all good, but I think it's a good talking point about what men thought of women and what men continue to think of women. I think it's a good conversation to have with this book, and I emailed my professor who taught my women's lit class, and I was like, I need to talk to you about this. I need to talk to you about this book because, oh my goodness, so much is going on, so much is to talk about, and then I got really bored. There's this middle part after this incident that happens in the beginning, and then this middle part is just really boring, and then the end is it's kind of confusing, but I think it ended well for what it was, and it was a kind of a fun way of seeing how the deterioration of a person is being portrayed in this painting, being the portrait of Dorian Gray. So that's the name. I gave it 3 stars. It was because of that middle part, and also it's pretty sexist at some points. And that whole incident is that's a trigger warning. I'm gonna put my hand up. This is kind of spoilers. I'm gonna talk about some trigger warnings. Okay, so trigger warnings: suicide. There is a suicide. They don't think, at first they were like, I don't think so, but like, thinking about the times, they didn't want to believe it was a suicide because the church wouldn't bury them in the grave, in the churchyard, if they had committed suicide. So that's the whole thing. Depression, anxiety, not the best. Dorian Gray is, he has some mental disorders. I can't pinpoint on really what he has, but he does. So be prepared. When he goes down quick. It's not a long book. It's 219 pages. So it's very quick. And this deterioration It's happening. It's going quickly. Anyways, 3 stars. It was alright. Next book I read was Alex and Eliza, A Love Story. I was in the mood. I got really into the mood of Hamilton this month. I love Hamilton. I've always loved Hamilton. And I was just really lately I've been like with Heather. I love Heathers too. Heathers is another one of my favorite musicals. But I was just in the mood for Alex and Eliza, and I read it, and whoo, that was a fun, fast read. The ending, it's like you know what's coming, but you don't know how it's going to happen. And if you're a fan of Hamilton, I highly recommend Alex and Eliza, A Love Story, because it's the things you don't see in the musical that you might want more of seeing, it's there. And it's just, the musical, it doesn't portray the relationship all that strong, or really like a happy kind of marriage, or like a happy couple kind of thing. And she reminds me a lot of like Lizzie from Pride and Prejudice, and I think that was a strong influence for Melissa de la Cruz. And Alex kind of reminds me of Mr. Darcy as well in the book. But if you're a huge fan of Hamilton, I highly recommend it. I don't remember what I gave it. I think I gave it 4 stars. Okay, trigger warnings. There's trigger warnings. Sexism is a big thing. Violence, domestic violence. Well, they weren't really together, but just rich people being spoiled rich people. Anyways, it was kind of annoying, and parents being, you know, like, I got the feeling, okay, so I think Melissa de la Cruz really took a lot of inspiration, and not that it's a bad thing, because it's a classic, but she took a lot of inspiration from Pride and Prejudice, and you can see it clear as day from when you read the book. And the mom and dad really remind me of Mr. and Mrs. Bennet in Pride and Prejudice, because the mom just wants to get them married. Also, she has like 19 woman. Okay. Anyways, and the father is like, what's the best for his children, and wants them to marry for love, not for money. And it's it's so good. I think that's why I liked this story as much as I did, because it reminded me of my all-time favorite romance novel, that being Pride and Prejudice. It's so good. But I was getting frustrated. Because the mom was wanting this marriage, and it really felt like a forced marriage. And it was, at the end, she was like, oh, if I knew how bad he was, I wouldn't have forced. I was like, which, seriously? Like, they're terrible people. You can clear as day see they're terrible people. Like, they were like, we're sorry. I'm like, you clear as day can see they're terrible people. Like, the dad is awful. Like, the whole family is terrible. Even, like, Kitty, who's, like, not the worst, but, like, she's still wrapped into it because she's still terrible. The son is the worst of them all, and, like, so that kind of felt, like, really weird, because the mom and dad was like, yeah. It's like, no, You had to have known something, because, like, the family being that terrible, like, you had to have had a bad feeling about something. It just blows my mind that they were like, I'm sorry, I don't know. Blah, shut up. Shut up. Seriously. Shut up. It's because it would make them look awful if, like, their daughter ends up dead because of them, because she ended up in a marriage with a dude who is violent, like, who will quite possibly kill her. In the I don't believe their sincerity. One bit. Don't believe their sincerity. Since the mom was always, like, pushing for marriage for money, I don't believe their sincerity one bit. Anyways, I had to go on a rant. I had to rant about that. Anyways, but it reminds me so much of Miss Bennett. Miss Bennett was also like that. So, Miss Bennett... Anyways, Miss Bennett was out there for getting her daughters married. Even if So that has been my wrap up. This ended up being longer than I thought it was because I had to rant a little bit about Alex and Eliza love story. It's good. Just go read it. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed. I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.